Okay, folks, the Cape May City Planning Board meeting is now in session, and in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. Should any member of this board have reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of that act, they shall so state at this time. Hearing none, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, if everybody would put their phones on silent or turn them off, please. Okay, do a roll call, Karen.
Yes, Mr. Bezier,
Here.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Belasco,
Here.
Mr. Crowley,
Here.
Mr. Gorgone,
Here.
Mayor Mullick, Mrs. Reed,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan,
Here.
Mr. Lundholm,
Here.
Mr. Malloy,
Here.
Mr. Paducas. Thank you.
Okay. We have minutes of June 28th, 2022 for approval.
So moved.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who moved?
Mr. Gorgone moved, and
Okay, motion by Mr. Gorgone, seconded by Mr. Crowley. Mr. Belasco?
Yes.
Mr. Gorgone?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Mrs. Reed?
Abstain.
Mr. Crowley?
Yes.
Mr. Lundholm?
Yes.
Mr. Malloy?
Yes.
Mr. Bezier?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have one application on tonight's agenda, Yacht Lot LLC, 1404 Washington Street, Block 1160, Lot 53.
I need to recuse myself. I'm within 200 feet.
Okay. Mrs. Reed was stepping down. You can hang around if you want, or you can go right home. Okay. So we have 7 members. Okay, Mr. Galzunas? Yep.
Board members, good evening. Ron Galzunas appearing on behalf of Yacht Lot LLC. The proposal this evening is to construct 4 townhomes in a single building. The lot is currently a vacant lot. There's going to be some excess overflow parking located behind the building. The parcel, as you know, is located in a very prominent location. Almost everyone exiting the city drives by this location. It was historically a gas station, then it sat vacant for many years, and now it will be contribute to the beauty of the city with a building that's designed to fit the Yacht Avenue theme and area and the character of the city overall. And we have a landscape design by a local and nationally recognized artist, Stan Spurlack, who after much persuasion by Mr. Platzer, as a personal favor, agreed to do this when informed of the location, the prominent location of this property. He agreed to take this on. So we're very excited and proud to present this plan, this landscape plan, as part of this application. Here this evening with us to give us some more detail on the project is Mr. Tom D'Arrigo of TJD Architects and Engineers, and Mr. Mark Platzer to my left, the principal of Yacht Lot LLC. So we can have these gentlemen sworn in.
I'd also note for the record that Mayor Mullick has joined us and will participate in the application. And if everyone could raise their right hands. Also, we're going to swear in our board engineer as well. So do each of you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. We now have 8. Right? Okay, well, we had 7, now we have 8.
So you
So
need 5 votes.
You need 5, so.
Yep, we've been down that road. We know what happens. Okay, so, Tom, could you briefly place your credentials on the record?
Yeah, I'm registered architect in New Jersey.
Why don't you put your microphone on?
Yeah, I'm principal architect and registered architect in the state of New Jersey for TJD Architects, licensed in New Jersey, New York, and 6 other states.
And you've testified before zoning and planning boards in this state and other states?
Yes, I have.
Have you been accepted as an expert?
Yes.
Okay, so, and you're familiar with this property and the zoning ordinance?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mr. Chairman?
Just quickly, I just want to get his licenses. That went very fast. I'll make sure I'm done. You're a licensed architect.
Yes,
Okay. Anything else at all?
just other states.
Not a planner, not an engineer?
No, but
just
we
architect?
do a lot of planning, and we have.
Okay, that's fine. I just make sure I give you all the credit you deserve. That's all.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
architect. All right, thank you, sir.
Okay. Tom, would you like to take us through the proposal and the presentation?
Yes. We have a rendered board, which is the same layout as you have in your package of drawings. It shows 4 units that are attached, townhouse style, that are single-story with raised garages below. So the occupancy, the actual residential level is the elevated level. The frontage on Yacht Avenue has been addressed, and we have our jogging facade there, as you can see, established so that we have minimal impact on the rear yard behind the commercial building behind. The area that's shown that's entering, the new apron cut that enters Yacht Avenue is improved with a concrete apron and also has a new public access sidewalk provided at the behest of the applicant. It's not a requirement, but we felt that it enhanced the safety of the site and embellished the frontage. It also has that very nice landscaping design that's been provided, as mentioned in the opening statements. And all that paving is permeable pavement.
Want to take the microphone with, if you would.
Okay, sorry. Take a look here. Yeah. Okay, all of this area in front of the cottages is access only. There's no parking scheduled for this front area. All the parking underneath the units are within the footprint. As you come around the side, you have more landscaping, and there is some overflow parking that's been proposed as part of the site. We had some feedback from the city planner as well as our traffic engineer regarding the flow, and we made it a one-way entrance and exit in this manner to have the least negative impact on the traffic flow of Washington Street. All right, that's about it. If there's any questions, we can certainly address them. There's also a facade here that shows you the general frontage on Yacht Avenue. These have shared entries, these 4 units, 2 and 2, 2 and 2, with that offset, as you see there. And very simple, very clean, and in materials consistent with the ordinance. Everything is shakes, everything is wood, and ready to
Tom,
respond.
Tell me about the units themselves. What are we proposing in terms of bedrooms and bathrooms? Is
You can-
ground floor completely storage?
Yeah, I refer you to the drawing package. You see on the ground floor, we have double-stack parking garages under each unit. Drawing A1. You can see the paired units on the on drawing 4 of A1. You see how there's that offset, and you see the shared access stairs in each of those paired units.
So how many parking spaces are proposed underneath each unit?
2 for each unit.
And then it seems that there's a lot of space in there that can be used for storage or...
Certainly, each unit has storage available as well as utility stuff.
Yeah. Is there a possibility to actually fit more than 2 cars? I know we're proposing 2 cars each.
Right, that's what we minimally propose, but certainly there's the ability to have other vehicles, especially with compact vehicles, but there's also expectation that there may be, other recreational equipment.
So let's go back to along Yacht Avenue. What's the existing condition? You talked a little bit about straightening out Yacht Avenue right-of-way or expanding the right-of-way. What's the current condition on the site? And what's the applicant proposing to better the conditions along Yacht Avenue?
Well, it's a little irregular, and the aprons are unimproved and undefined. What this does is gives pedestrian protection by providing a new sidewalk with the conforming grass strip in front. It has depressed curbing, and it basically cleans up the whole frontage of the lot.
So now the property line goes out almost into Yacht Avenue.
Right, and you'll notice on the drawing that it's beyond, so there's a substantial dedication being provided by the applicant to the city to give this portion of his site to the city for to accommodate this public way.
So right now, we look at it, and I'm looking at some photos in the application. There's a crosswalk, and then it stops. It goes into grass area, which is the property.
Right.
And that's going to be, the applicant's going to put a sidewalk,
That's correct.
dedicate this as part of the right-of-way to the city.
That's correct.
So you'll have a sidewalk, you'll have a curbing, and it'll actually straighten out
Yeah.
Yacht Avenue and square off the property a little bit.
Very much so.
Now, the front of the property, the building seems to be pushed back a lot, about 41 feet, I think.
Yeah, I can't read that, but approximately, yes.
And the front yard setback requirement on Yacht Avenue, I believe, is 20.
Yes, it satisfies the setback in the front, both halves of this jogged structure. There is a slight encroachment on the rear yard that you'll notice in the commentary. That's due to the jigsaw configuration of the lot line, but also because we wanted to accommodate that frontage improvement. If we could have ignored that and pulled the rear side forward and eliminate those small waiver requests that we have, or variance requests we have for the rear yard. But we felt that the improvement along Yacht Avenue outweighed the very slight variance request for just those pointed areas where we have the jogged condition behind the right side of the building. Everything generally conforms to that rear yard setback if you look at the line that's drawn there. But again, we felt that giving that front yard improvement was a good trade for that slight rear yard request.
So, I assume the front yard improvement you're talking about is the right-of-way.
The right-of-way as well as all of the landscaping.
And the landscaping, and not having cars parked in front of the
Exactly.
building, which I think is
Right.
more of a concern recently in design.
That's right.
To get the cars out from in front of the building and either in a garage or behind the building.
Right. It's important to remember that there's no proposal for parking in that paved area, just for access.
Now, that also opens up the view corridor from Yacht Avenue and Washington Avenue, and opens up that vista, open air,
Yep.
light and space.
Yes, indeed. Again, it's a community-sensitive approach.
And that, the rear of the building is going to be facing an existing commercial structure.
Totally back of house
So-
to back of house.
Right, so that rear yard variance relief we're looking for really is not going to, there's not going to be any negative impact to the back of a commercial building.
In fact, it screens that back of house activity, if you will.
And as you pointed out, it's real, we have all those benefits in the front, and then in the rear, we have this, I call this sawtooth lot line,
Right.
and it's not the entire back, it's just sections that sort of jut in as a result of that
Right.
lot line.
That's exactly right.
So would you say there are some unique characteristics to the lot that are exacerbating the situation?
Yeah, and I think that we've done, and the applicant has wanted to make a sensitive application here. He's directed us to make sure that we give our best effort to, for the public frontage and comply with all the directives in the ordinance.
So to the extent there's any detriment from having a shorter or not, I think we're probably half compliant in the back and half at 10 or 11 feet. But to the extent there's any detriment from that, would you say that all of the benefits that you've described on the front, pushing the building back, not having parking, expanding the right-of-way, the opportunity for some remarkable landscaping, would you say that all of those benefits substantially outweigh that little side yard shortfall that we're having resulting from that jigsaw type back property line?
I certainly would.
Is this a better design alternative rather than to have the building pushed all the way up to 20 feet in the front?
Right.
Now, that's the rear yard setback. You see that as a substantial impairment of the zoning ordinance, having that minor rear yard setback?
No, I really don't. And as I said, we're actually screening a back-of-house facade from that commercial building, so it actually improves it on that score as well.
And you're planning, there's some trees also that are going to be, we've got the Wawa parking lot on one side, so our landscaping really goes on both sides of the property.
That's right.
And I think we're also 22 feet from Washington, where we only need to be 20. So we're actually even 2 feet further back on that side, okay, right?
Yes.
And do all those same reasonings apply to that additional setback open space that we're providing?
Yes, and I just want to make a mention that overflow parking is there to assure that there isn't excess parking in the front of those units. So if you can say, oh, well, people may decide to park there, I think the owner applicant intends to control that, and he specifically provided this overflow parking as a way to discourage that kind of activity.
All right, so let's talk about that parking area. Now, that's on a section of the lot that really juts out almost to, well, it goes out to Texas. What do you do with that, right? How do you make the best use of that property in terms of design, getting some functionality out of it, and making it work for the community at large, and also function for these people who are going to be tenants in this building?
Well, I think you do that by defining what it's going to be used for and by cleaning up the perimeter. It currently sort of has had sort of a haphazard area in the past, this shell paving, and looks like in the past there's been different vehicles, sort of unorganized. This actually creates a one-way in and one-way out apron. It's going to be striped and paved to clearly define how the motorist is to negotiate the entrance and exit, and it doesn't allow kind of irregular
You mentioned,
usage.
I believe, that the drive aprons are existing.
That's right.
Now, this isn't the first rendition of this proposal for this overflow parking, is it?
No.
How was it first proposed? What was the first design put forth and considered?
Well, actually, the first design had one less parking slot, but it also had the one-way directional parking in the opposite direction that's currently rendered, which really did not work with the flow of Washington.
So the spaces were angled in the other direction?
Correct.
And the two driveways were actually different. The entrance would have been closer to Texas, and
Right.
the exit was closer to Yacht.
Right, and I believe that our traffic engineering consultant
Well,
reviewed it.
let's see how we got there.
Sure.
So I think we submitted that plan, and the board engineer reviewed it and raised his concerns
Yep.
with that parking configuration.
It's a case of us not looking too closely at it and not seeing it. You needed an extra pair of eyes to say the obvious, and it was a definite improvement.
So we pretty much came up with switching this around to address those concerns, those safety factors. And now we went out and we got a report from Dave Shropshire.
Yes.
And I think everyone knows who Dave Shropshire is, but I think you've worked with him
Yes, many times.
extensively in the past.
Yes.
And you've reviewed the report that he has prepared, and it's been submitted with this application. Mr. King, I'd move that into the record.
What are you moving in?
His report.
Traffic study.
This is the survey.
I don't think I can do that. I mean, who's going to cross-examine Mr. Shropshire?
I don't know that he necessarily needs to be subject to cross-examination. I mean, boards are free to accept expert reports, testimony, or to reject it.
I don't think they can take his expert testimony by a written submission. I mean, I think he has to testify, and people might want to ask questions, the board might have questions, that's why so I don't think we can put, I mean, I think, why don't you just try to have this gentleman say what he can say about traffic, but I can't just take Mr. Shropshire's report as a whole without, I mean, help me out, I mean.
Okay,
I'm just saying,
I'll work around it.
seems like, otherwise, we would just get, I mean, why does anyone need to come? They can just send the reports in.
The report was requested by the municipal engineer. It was provided, and the details within the report are self-evident.
Okay, let's just look at that for a second.
I'm not sure that members of the board know how to read a traffic report.
Well,
It's-
you can go right to
It
his
says the
conclusion.
applicant's professional should provide the findings of the analysis to the board, so I thought Craig was anticipating some testimony on the traffic stuff, because I think he had questions too, so I just, to put his whole report in without being able to ask him questions about that. Craig, do you have any thoughts on that, or, I mean, I don't.
No, I, very early in this process, when they first submitted their application for completeness review, I identified several things that I thought were going to be issues with this. And normally, the board will waive traffic reports or traffic analysis for most sites in Cape May. But this is one of the worst intersections that we have in the city. So I was very concerned. I was very concerned about the distance. So we have an existing condition here. I mean, there's two curb cuts that are already there. There's an existing undefined, undelineated area that's there. So it's already an existing animal. So I'm like, but when we look at these, we have to make this safe for the city. And, you know, I want a traffic analysis of what we're going to do here, what the site distances are here. We have, if you're a motorist exiting Texas Avenue onto Washington Street, you're in a yield situation where you're navigating a curve, trying to get clear sight to traffic coming in off of Washington, and there's that 2 lanes where everyone is jockeying for whether you're going out of town or whether you're circling back into town. There's a lot of things that are going on there. So one of the things we discussed was, you know, I thought safest is let's get everyone out on Yacht Avenue, not have any access to Washington Street, so that the whole project traffic volume is going through a stop-controlled intersection at Yacht Avenue. That's the safest condition. And if Mr. Shropshire was here, he could tell you that. His report is saying that so what they've done is tried to make the existing lot better. And instead of having an ingress close to the curve on Texas Avenue, they've pushed that entrance into that driveway to the second driveway access to give more sight and reaction time if you're coming onto that. So it's better than what's there now, and I agree with Mr. Shropshire, it's better, but is there a safer way? Now, when I say that, let's look at the overall parking requirements for the site. And there's a typo or an error in my report, and I think I drug it off of I was trying to find where that, I had thought that each unit was 4 bedrooms. So each unit is 2 bedrooms. So each unit has a 1.5 space parking requirement in accordance with our residential site improvement standards. So the existing parking underneath the structures is adequate for the site. Now, one of the suggestions is, let's eliminate that driveway totally off of Washington Street. Get rid of it. Turn it to either green space, and I know the applicant doesn't want to give that up, but it's a safer situation. There's a lot of variances that are necessary that we're going to be dealing with tonight that involve the reconfiguration of that. That is really a non-conforming parking lot. And when I get through when I go through, I'll show you. But those are some of the things that we discussed early on in this process, is the safety of that lot and the access and egress on the Washington Street in the close proximity to Texas Avenue. So that was identified.
Okay, so I want you to have the benefit, I mean, I get it, like, on one hand, Craig has some feelings about Shropshire's report, but then I'm saying, well, you can't put in Shropshire's report, and I just generally don't allow, it's not just me, it's generally not allowed to have experts testify by written submission, because they have to be subjected to cross-examination if they're going to offer expert opinion. I mean, it's just one of the rules. And, so I want to give you guys every fair chance. Craig doesn't seem to, so normally, if it was just something where the report came in and it was something that said, I've looked into this and there's a no further action letter dated June 15th and here it is, or something, it was like not something in dispute or of concern to the engineer, I'd say, okay, well, fine, we're getting stuff done. But where it's a critical traffic issue and our engineer kind of sees it differently than Mr. Shropshire, it seems imprudent for all of us to just put his report in. So I just, that's my hesitancy, Mr. Galzunas. Is it a scheduling thing? Like, why?
All right, Mr. Placer just wants to proceed forward with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we want to proceed with it because, and we'll.
How long's it been there, Mark? Do we know those two driveways, how long that's been there in the city?
Well, Dale Foster, the county put those two,
County put them
the
in,
county put those aprons
on a
in.
county road,
On a county road.
on that
Okay?
intersection.
This town needs more parking than anything,
Okay,
not more green space. So we're going to testify and we'll testify with you and we'll talk about it and we'll go through it with the board and we'll answer any questions that they might have. But I think we spoke with them on the phone. We got the report that he wanted. So let us present let you guys go through your thing. We'll present ours and let's see where the chips fall.
Oh, that's fine.
Now, we're just cautioning you, you don't have the traffic professional to talk about his report, and Mr. Darrigo,
There you go.
there you go, is not an engineer, so he really can't talk about the site improvements, that's kind of outside the scope
Well, I
of his
don't think
expertise.
that's the case. You're permitted to do site plans up to how many square
10
feet?
acres. We've done
10
plenty of
acres.
them.
Okay, but
So-
he's not an expert on traffic.
Well, do you need an expert on traffic for 5? I mean, what triggers this? Can we do 5 spaces?
The board's going to decide whether they need an expert in traffic, and they're going to rely on my testimony, and you've just gotten a little highlights of where I'm at with this.
All right, I'm gonna let you put in your case. I sense some, Craig is gonna talk about the report. So I think that I will let the report, Mr. Chairman, you're gonna have to decide. I'm inclined to, normally I wouldn't let a hearsay report in, but it sounds like Craig has some things to say about it. I don't know that your testimony, that Craig, depends on Mr. Shropshire. You have
Yeah,
your own
I'm not going to argue the merits, like inaccuracies in that report.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that if we had Mr. Shropshire here and I asked him the question, is it safer to bring all of the traffic out onto Yacht Avenue? I can pretty much guarantee that 99% of the engineers surveyed would say, yes, it's a safer situation to bring traffic out to a stop-controlled intersection before they enter onto Washington Street.
I'm sorry, Mr. Guzzo. I really thought Mr. Shropshire was going to.
I'm going to disagree. It's the tightest street to exit on Yacht Avenue. You got a big development, which you're aware of, that you spoke to me on, that's going in across the street. And I want all my neighbors to testify, okay, where they want the overflow parking to go in and out of, which has been going on for over 60 years.
Okay? I wanted to caution you that you don't have the professionals here to really argue these site plan issues.
Well, I think we got a lot of common sense here.
I would say notwithstanding the details of the Shropshire report and the recommendations that the municipal engineer has,
Speak into the microphone.
Can you speak in the microphone so everyone can hear you?
sorry about that, notwithstanding the reservations that the municipal engineer has regarding the details of the traffic study and the conclusions, we have other just basic planning issues here, and one of them is, I think already identified by the applicant, is that there's going to be a need for parking, additional overflow parking. We've met the minimum standard for the units themselves with the garage parking, but we all know that, high season, it's going to be a demand. And I think the purpose of the applicant proposing to clean this up and provide those spaces is for relieving that congestion, or at least contributing to the relief. So that's really the purpose. I don't think it's the fact that those aprons were installed by the county and reviewed by county engineering. That's another factor to consider and weigh.
I'm sorry?
Those are county-placed aprons on Washington. So they were installed and reviewed by the county. So you have to consider that other professionals have also looked at this issue. So while there may still be some legitimate reservations, this is just more.
Street, a county road along that frontage?
Yes.
It's not shown on the plan that way.
It's my understanding that it is.
What was the configuration of the intersection when the aprons were put in?
I don't know. This is,
Same thing. Same exact thing. I owned the property across the street when they did that. And I think if you look at it and look at the traffic study, they told us that with the minimum amount of spaces, okay, and if you were pulling in there while cars were coming around Texas, it would create more of a problem, which it says in there. Okay, so by going up and then hitting your blinker to turn in, it creates less of a traffic nightmare. And then when you're leaving, you're right there so that you can look to the left and see who's coming and take the first lane, which has been going on for 100 years there.
That's what it's been reconfigured to.
do it.
So right now, those driveways there's no designation on those driveways. You can come in and out of each.
So in Mr. Shropshire's report, he identifies Washington Street as a municipal street and Texas Avenue as a county route. Just for the record, and we're relying on Mr. Shropshire's report, that's what it says. Your plans don't identify either one as county roads, so.
so was did the municipality place those aprons? I don't know. Who made that improvement?
No,
From the gas station that was there before?
No.
I don't know.
no, they were put in when they did all that island in the middle.
Correct, those are county roads.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, they're county roads.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, that's,
The county just remarked them all. Yeah,
I'm sorry, what was that? They are or they are not?
they are.
They are county roads.
Yeah,
Washington Avenue stops as a municipal street just prior to this intersection.
correct.
Isn't Washington a county road? It's not at all.
Washington is municipal.
What's wrong?
This report says Washington Street, two-lane one-way is under the jurisdiction of Keepman County.
Okay. All right.
The traffic report says that, right? Yeah.
And those two curb cuts, what was on that site when that would happen, when they were done?
Been like that. It was vacant.
No, as I say,
Exactly the way it was.
It was vacant.
Existing, the way
There
it
weren't,
is right
there
now.
weren't parking spaces there or anything, it was just.
Yeah, no, they were there. That concrete's always been there.
But they're pulling, they're straight parking spots right now. They're just straight, they're not angled.
Exactly.
They're non-delineated. There's an asphalt, there's a surface. Right.
Right, and you're correct. Some of it's concrete, some of it's shells, some of it's not. We're proposing to clean it all up.
Can we take a 2-minute break?
Parking
I want to talk to
proposed to be,
Sure.
is that proposed parking part of the building that with the stores?
No.
No.
No, that's always been two separate lots, and it's never been combined, there's never been co-leases, there's never been anything with it. It never went along with that. That was a gas station in the back there.
Mark, turn your,
I'm sorry. No, it was never in any type of leases or never any assignment to that building in the front.
Is there a reason why there's no setback between the parking and the other building? And are we required to have the setback between the parking and this building?
Yes.
It's on the zoning chart for the parking.
Right, there are variances being requested.
Okay, I guess I thought the variance was for the street coming in for the parking, not from the building that,
No, it's the
current building.
buffer.
Right, so it's a variance for parking within the setbacks along Washington, which is 20-foot setback, so the parking is, I believe, 17 feet from Washington. Parking within setback rear yard, so. Which is up against the building. That's a,
oh, this right here.
Yep.
Okay.
if we're calling that the rear yard portion, there's a variance required for that, and also a buffer. So with regard to the buffer, I mean, we do have landscaping on either side, to the left and right of it. The parking spaces, they come right up to the commercial building, so any kind of buffer.
Guys, the crosstalk will get picked up, and there's supposed to be a clean record, so I just got to ask you to, any deliberations are supposed to be kind of, okay? Go ahead.
Right, so you want to talk a little, Tom, about the need for a buffer with,
Ron, Rich would like to have a little,
oh, okay.
we'll take a two-minute recess so you can have a little powwow.
Okay.
Microphones off, please.
Tommy? No movie tonight.
It's
awkward.
I was asking about this.
All right, Mr. Chairman, what we'd like to do is just go through the balance of the application, get the rest of the testimony on while we're here, and then we'll see how it goes and make a decision at that point. We'll hear from Mr. Harless. We'd like to hear from the neighbors as well, and then make a decision whether we'll just roll the dice and put it to a vote or adjourn for some additional evidence.
That's fine. The chairman's discretion, but I want to explain something. The board's not obligated to adjourn anything. There'll be a vote. You know, like if you request an adjournment, they decide if they want to vote and up or down, they can do that. I mean, I just had that happen 2 months ago in the zoning board. Like, they felt they had the information they needed, and they wanted to vote, and they denied the adjournment. So you don't really get to, like, I'm just giving you a heads up on that. It can happen. So put in whatever testimony you want, and then
Well, it seems that we're in that position regardless, so, right.
want to vote tonight, they can vote tonight.
Right. Well, that holds true now as it does 15 minutes from now
I
when
know,
we
but
do,
you just
right.
said we're going to see how it goes and then decide if we're going to adjourn, and I'm just telling you, it's not necessarily your decision. You can request it, and then the chairman,
Oh, well, that I understand. Yep.
I know you
Sorry.
do,
Yep.
but I get 20, 30 people here in law school, so I
Okay.
Okay? All right, there you go. Good luck.
Okay, so, all right, so notwithstanding the safety concern, that's one issue. The other issues were the variances, Tom, for the buffering. So let's talk about what variances we need. I think we have to, the parking spaces have to be 20 feet off of Washington, but we're 17
Correct.
from the drive aisle, correct?
Right.
So that's 3 feet.
Existing condition that we, from our proposal with that overflow parking, that would be would have to be granted.
Okay, but we're really talking 3 feet, so that's not too bad.
Can the architect turn on the mic, please? Thank you.
Sorry.
And then on to the north of the overflow parking, to the south of it, there's pretty much green space and landscaping. So then we're really talking about the buffer and the proximity of the spaces to the commercial building.
Right.
So what's the need for a buffer between a
I have to look at
pretty
the ordinance.
commercial,
I mean, 5 feet is typical.
5 feet, but the buffer is to insulate from negative impacts flowing back and forth from the properties, right?
Yeah, and we have only fitted in there some parking bumpers to protect the building. If we redesigned it to push them further back, we'd have other variances that would be increased. So it's a push and pull kind of situation regarding those spaces.
Okay, but do you see any negative consequences flowing onto the commercial building from having these parking spaces?
No, I don't. It's a separate property. It's going to be, controlled by the Cottage Ave LLC or whatever that entity is. I said it's part of the residential development. It's not part of the commercial parcel.
Right.
And there's no reason for that to have access from the commercial property.
And that's just a wall on that commercial building. There's no entrances,
Correct.
windows, or anything like that. So having that parking there is not going to affect that existing building.
Right.
Okay. So do you see any major substantial detriment to the neighborhood resulting from having a lack of that buffer and the setback variances?
No, in my opinion, the addition of this overflow parking outweighs those deficiencies.
And there's also, I think, there's a little walkway, pathway between where the bumper stops would be and the actual side
Slight,
of the building.
yeah.
Okay. And some of the comments in the engineer's review letter, I think you started to address the crushed stone. Is that the better alternative than for drainage and the environment and the character of Yacht Avenue rather than having the asphalt, wide expanses of asphalt?
Yeah, and that was the applicant's intention too. So we've done a storm design. We've done the test pits. That was included in all the calculations. And yeah, it's a softer, more residential feel for the overall character of the development.
And you would be prepared to work out the stormwater issues to the engineer's satisfaction as a condition of approval?
Certainly.
And his company.
Yeah, we have, our engineer would satisfy any concerns that your municipal engineer has regarding the storm design.
And the ownership of this building, Mark, these are not going to be condo, these are not going to be sold, this is going to be retained by you, and these will be rental units, correct?
Correct.
And there's no plan to do that anytime in the immediate future, to sell these
No.
buildings? Okay. Okay, I think everything else in there we agreed to. The right-of-way would be a dedication to the city?
Yes.
Are you actually subdividing it off and dedicating?
No, it would be a right-of-way. Like you get, like you typically have on the county road that right.
Oh, okay.
It's just a deed, it's a deed right-of-way. Almost everywhere you apply on a county road, they want 10 or 15 feet, depending on where you are, and it's just a deed, and it gets filed, and it gives them the right to expand the road. So that's what would be happening here.
Yeah, I had thought this already had happened, that Mr. Platzer had given some of that land to the city. And
That happened on another site near this.
Across the street from
oh,
it.
no, I knew it was across the street, but I thought when we were talking about the one across the street, they had said that you had already done it for that side of the street. And I was actually, had the clerk looking for something if it was pertaining to that, even before maybe you bought it. That's why I was asking.
No, I didn't do any of it yet. Actually, it was on one of our workshops. He recommended it. And after discussing it with my attorney, and then we always wanted to put a sidewalk in there. I mean, it's the most dangerous road you can, it's unbelievable right there, Yacht Avenue. That little patch there, anybody walking from the marinas, anybody going anywhere, there's no sidewalk on either side. I thought it would be a great improvement. I thought landscaping that corner, similar to what I did at Lafayette and Madison, would be a great improvement. And I think our neighbors and our little neighborhood back there deserves more residential and not more commercial. We can't handle any more traffic there. We don't want to handle any more traffic, and I thought it would be a great improvement to dedicate that over as a condition of us approving and putting in what we were.
I have a question for the board engineer. Isn't sidewalks required for
Yes.
housing in Cape May?
Yes, sidewalks are required, and
Okay.
very early, when we had our initial conversations, we identified the fact that if they were to provide sidewalk, they would either need an easement, an access easement to allow people, like the public, to travel that, or it would be better to convey through a
Okay.
dedication so that the city controlled the sidewalk.
That's correct.
They agreed, and they
That's
will do
exactly
that.
how it went.
They've agreed to do that as a condition of approval. But that takes a city council action, and the board can't do that.
I had a question, Bill. Does that you're talking about this corner up here on the property,
Which corner?
where the sidewalk is? This is Yacht Avenue, in Washington. Would this deed of land make that Yacht Avenue wider than it is now?
Yes. If you see the cross hatching on the plan,
Yeah.
that's the area that's being dedicated.
So, yeah, so you're going to make the entrance into Yacht and the exit out of Yacht wider than it is now?
Well, they're not changing the curb line.
No, but
The right-of-way is there in case the city ever wanted to,
so it'll be easier to get in and out of Yacht Avenue if this,
if the city were willing to do that.
yeah, okay. All right.
It would make good sense, yeah. It's it's a win-win for everybody,
Correct.
yeah.
I agree with you.
So these units are going to be rentals then, and the two-bedroom,
2-bedroom, 2-bath, 4 2-bedroom, 2-bath units, and actually 4-car garages. They're 2-car garages underneath, but they're stackable.
so they're oversized, so.
Exactly.
And in reality, it has 4 dedicated spots underneath the.
Exactly.
Unit. So, like, I'd lived in a townhouse for a number of years. We had overflow parking because, you were limited to your driveway and your garage. A lot of people use their garage for storage. Being a rental, that would not be the case here.
Exactly. Or if they were getting, if I had to get air conditioners serviced or any type of work done there,
Yeah.
that's where we would put the contractors,
Yeah.
have them to park there. I don't anticipate it being used much.
No, it's an overflow lot.
Exactly.
Really what it is.
Right, so that's a good question, Mark. I neglected to ask. What's the actual intent for this space? What's the intensity of use you anticipate for this overflow parking?
Exactly what I said. If they do get deliveries, furniture deliveries, they'll come in through the back. If somebody's coming to service the air conditioners, if we're having any type of work done there, that was going to be the overflow parking. And the engineer recommended that we do it in a impervious. Wasn't that it?
It's required.
Right.
Okay, I think that's it. Of course, I'd like to reserve the ability to call additional witnesses if we do decide to adjourn, or request an adjournment, rather.
Is that the end of your testimony?
It is. Well, let me go through a couple cleanup questions here. Yeah. Yeah, not fast enough, right?
Actually, the person I wanted to hear from, while they were having that exchange with Craig, Mr. Bakker seemed to say things that he believed were important about the parking lot and how it's helpful to the area or whatever, and he kind of blew through them because he was a little excited at the time, and he went very fast, and I was trying to coordinate everyone about Mr. Shropshire. So I'd like him, I would think it'd be prudent to have him just give his testimony again, because I don't know that it made it in my notes, and I'm not sure it was received as factual as opposed to a somewhat heated conversation with Craig, so I just want to make sure it comes in testimonially, okay?
Thank you.
So go ahead and give your,
So I think if everybody looks at the rendering on there, okay, and sees up front, and I just overheard them say about green space or whatever, there's absolutely no street parking available around this entire site. I think everybody here, everybody on the board's aware of that, correct? Okay, so I think the overflow parking is a necessity. I realize that it's not the best situation, but I've owned the properties there, okay, and it's going to get better, not worse, by what we're proposing. Can we fix it in its entirety? I think it's the worst intersection in town. Everybody knows that, the blend going in. But I think when the town's busy, it goes down to 4 or 5 miles an hour like it is today, and everybody's just packed getting around the corner. And I think it addresses a lot of the problems and the needs. There's no way that if someone rented these places and someone across town was renting somewhere else, there's nowhere to park. There's not additional parking in the Wawa lot, okay, that they can just use anymore. Everybody sees what that is. So I think it creates it. It's going to create a nice buffer there. It looks terrible now. It's going to be a drastic improvement to what's going on. And I think what the engineer did, at first I thought it was ludicrous, but after driving through there and really studying it on my bike, I think if there is a chance of an accident, you're going to get hit in the rear trying to get in there, if you're not familiar with the site, rather than going down a little bit further and going in the second apron with your blinker on, which makes a lot of sense. When you're exiting there, the way he has the exit up closer to the intersection, it gives you so much more visibility to see what's coming along Texas Avenue and what also is coming up Washington Street. It's a win-win. It doesn't put any more people at risk or at safety. And as far as the buffer against the building, the existing building that's there, there's a sidewalk, and then there'll be along the building. It's not like people, if they were around back doing a trash thing or whatever, they still have underneath the whole overhang a 4-foot sidewalk, and then there's going to be parking bumpers there that the cars are going to be up against. So it definitely cleans it up. It's going to be visible. That overflow parking affects absolutely no neighbors. No, it's been there. It's a busy street. It has no negative impact. I've talked to every neighbor. I've bought a lot of neighbors here, and it makes a lot of sense. And for us to give up any type of overflow parking that has been there or any type of parking in the city of Cape May, which I think is our #1 problem, it's not just downtown. It's in the entire city of Cape May, and I think it would be ludicrous to give it up. Thank you.
Okay, just to follow up, generally, the site plan characteristics, the flow, what's proposed on the use, can the site accommodate this development?
In my opinion, yes. If there's some adjustments that can be made, to respond to the engineer's concerns, I think we can certainly accommodate them.
And the scale of the development in relation to the lot, and I just want to summarize how we're sort of under what could be done here. I think our coverage can be up to 70. We're proposing 59.7.
Yes, our intensity of development is reasonably conservative.
And of course, we went through in detail the oversized front yard setbacks, and our building height. We're allowed to go up to 35. We're proposing 27.4.
That's right.
So this is a lower profile, smaller, pushed back.
Smaller impact visually, trying to be sensitive to the neighborhood.
Okay.
I have a question. I don't know if I don't know if it was something that was thought of or not, but the bigger issue that, in my mind, I think the board's mind, is cars coming down Washington, coming around Texas Avenue, and taking that right-hand turn, even if it's further down, taking that right-hand turn into the lot. Why not continue the driveway off Yacht Avenue so that the cars go through? You only have an exit point off of Washington Street. Continue the driveway around and coming up Washington Street, and eliminate the entrance in. Then you've got a smooth flow through there, and you don't have those cars stopping on Washington Street to make the right-hand turn.
I made that recommendation early in the process.
Bill, because that's a residential unit, okay, on the end. We don't want cars riding along next to it, and we don't want it to be a cut-through into anybody else, into Wawa or anybody starting to cut through everything there. And it's a residential unit. I want to put that berm in there and landscape it up so that it creates everything. Then you're going to have,
Concerned about the traffic safety too. And
on 5 cars,
understand that. Pardon me?
on what's been there for 60 years?
Mark, I'm
I understand, Bill, but I'm asking you a question. If we're correct in what a traffic
your
engineer,
answer is no.
okay.
I have some issues or concerns about the issues that we have with flooding in that area. And how this development going to affect it, and, where are we going to drain the water to? Because right now, we have issues with no one being able to get out of
They don't
town.
have a professional here that can answer that, so would you like to hear my take on that? Okay, so when they're in a flood zone, so there are certain requirements that they have to meet, that they're not required to meet because they are in a flood zone. So when you're in a flood zone in New Jersey, the regulations don't account for tidal flooding. So if you're in a tidal flooding area, they recognize it's going to flood, no matter what you do, no matter how much infiltration you have, how much storage you have, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the ocean, the back bay, whatever. So they don't make you design for that. Okay?
I guess my concern is that it is the exit out of town. So when there is flooding issues, it is our only way out, besides going through West Cape May. So I just want to make sure that we address the issue of exiting Cape May during floodings.
This development will have no impact, either positive or negative, on tidal flooding. And that's mostly what occurs here.
I don't understand that either, or not either, I don't understand that. What about water going from the site, off of the site onto the...
So they're required to design for the water quality storm and provide storage for that.
I don't think you talked about that yet.
Yeah, so that's, they haven't given me that design yet, so they don't have a design that meets that criteria yet. They're going to have to do something here, but it's not as, if they weren't in a flood zone, they would have significant amount of storage that they'd have to design for the 100-year storm, water quality storms, reduce the rate of discharge from the site. Those are all things that they're not obligated to do because they're in a flood hazard area.
Can we give final approval without information?
And that, well, I was going to talk about that during my completeness, but, so I did recommend deeming the application complete, but because there's so many missing elements and there may be changes that the board requires them, I would only support granting completeness for preliminary at this point.
And Stacy, I could just, and I think the mayor and Lou could also bear, that lot is one of the highest lots around as far as flooding. Do you know everybody parks there when it's a high tide and a full moon? Okay, and the flooding occurs on the city's property. And I think Mr. Moloch and the engineer and everybody knows that there's a problem with it draining into the bay from those inlets there. Okay, and it goes the other way. If there's any flooding on that corner that comes to that one little corner that we're aware of on the landscaping plan also, it's due to the high tides are backing into that storm drain and coming up. It's common knowledge up and down Yacht Avenue, and it occurs drastically right there on the corner.
But in the front there, we usually have when it rains.
Not on Yacht Avenue.
When you turn from Texas Avenue on to Washington.
Right.
It has flooding there that isn't, I don't think, from the back bays.
It's definitely from the back. Can you guys
talking about-
testify for it, please? And
Just for the benefit of everybody and from Yacht Avenue and the audience too, we have had conversations with the county engineer, because as was pointed out earlier, these are county roads. So we are working toward a solution. They are going to be repaving Pittsburgh Avenue, and the solution that they feel will work best for this area has been folded into that project. So it is oncoming. It is going to be addressed, hopefully. So we've been in contact and working toward that.
And if I could just add, one of the issues has been with simple mechanical duck bills that they've since fixed within the last couple months, I guess. But also, they're looking at a secondary means of getting the water out. So they want to have two means of getting the water out of that area. So that is going to be a county project.
Okay.
And I'm only saying that really for the folks that are here tonight.
Yeah. Back to though, I know the property's higher, but no matter when you build on something and you put a house on concrete, the water's going to run off. So that's, and I, had houses built next to me, and also now I have flooding in my yard because of runoff. So I guess that's what I was asking on, is where is this water?
we're going to control it on site, our downspout water and all, absolutely.
Yeah, we've provided storm structures underground for that, and I believe Mr. Hurlis commented that the impact of this development wouldn't have any real impact on the intersection.
Okay.
Either way.
Now, I read part of the stormwater management report, and I guess because it was once a gas station, is there any kind of containment that you have to do for the site? And I don't know, I'm just asking.
No, there's been a no further action letter. All the wells have been capped. The Riggins Oil Company owns it, and every 5 years there's a water test that gets completed. The next one will be in 2026, and they're responsible for it, but the state has given us a no further action. All the wells are capped.
Okay, so, but they had to open those wells up, I guess, to test it, right?
No, they just do a bore test, not through a well. They just go down and drill into there.
Okay.
There to just keep saying that the numbers are going in a negative direction. It's been over 20, how many years, Bill, since the gas station? Do you know? 29 or 39 years?
More than that.
Oh, really?
Right, so nothing else needs to be done.
Okay. So your presentation is complete?
It is, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So Craig, you want to go through your comments?
Sure. My latest review memorandum for this application is dated June 29th, 2022. This is a site plan preliminary and final application with variances for a proposed multifamily residential development of 4 units containing 2 bedrooms each. So that's correct, right? 2 bedrooms each unit. Okay. All right. So we'll roll into completeness review. They've asked for waivers from items number 21 and 24 from the C and D variance checklist. I did support those variances, the waiver requests, so those were not issues. Under the checklist for preliminary site plan approval, they're required to provide the location and size of all proposed easements, rights-of-ways, public areas to be dedicated to public, or to be restricted or defined by deed or other arrangement. So they've shown that on the plan. However, those documents that actually create those dedications have not been submitted for review. So that should be provided as a condition of approval. Ultimately, that's a city function. The city has to approve that, so it's something that the board cannot do, but that would be evidence of that approval has to be provided as a condition of approval. All right. Under 3T, that was just asking about the ownership. Ultimately, the stormwater system has to be maintained by someone. And if it's multiple owners on this lot, it would have to be a form of condominium or that homeowners association that would control and take care of the maintenance of the common elements. In this case, Mr. Platzer indicated that he's owning the whole thing, so that's not really an issue anymore. He's going to be responsible for all of the maintenance on the property for all of the common elements.
So does that remain as a condition or no?
I don't believe so. If he's going to be taking care of all of it, there's no homeowners association, so we don't need to see those documents.
And then if you converse it later, how does that work?
Right.
Then,
It should remain.
I think it should be a condition.
okay. So we could change the language so that if you were ever to convey that, convert to a condo.
Yeah, that would be a common element. I don't know how you draft a master deed with a common element that needs to be maintained.
That's only in the
I'll,
event
no
of
one will ask me.
Yeah.
That's only in the event of a sale?
Yeah.
No, if you
Yeah.
condo.
If you condoed it out.
The new stormwater regs make someone take ownership of the maintenance
I'll
of those.
agree to that. If there was a sale, yeah, we would have to do that. I mean, it makes sense, right? Only you gotta maintain it. Yeah, we'll agree to that.
Okay.
So subsection V deals with the requirements of providing a full environmental impact statement. And they haven't given us that, so there's a necessary waiver for that. However, and we just picked up on this, we know that the site has been, site of former pollution and contamination. There's been cleanups, and they provided us with the DEP 2007 no further action letters. So I detail that in there, but you have to grant a waiver from providing all of the full environmental impact statement. So I did support that. I don't know of any, otherwise the site has been developed in the past. There's no other environmental issues that are known. And then item Z is they've asked for a waiver from providing the affordable housing report. Our threshold for providing on-site affordable units is 5 units. This is a 4-unit development, so they're not going to be required to provide on-site. They will have to pay their required contribution to the fees in compliance with Chapter 59, but otherwise I do support a waiver from that so long as they're going to meet all of their obligations. And based on that, I did recommend deeming the application complete, and as I discussed, that completeness is for preliminary only, unless the board sees fit to grant final, but I'll put that in their hands. With regards to the zoning requirements, this is the analysis of the variances that are necessary. So for the structure itself, 20-foot setback is required from the rear yard, and that rear yard is associated with the commercial buildings at 1400 Texas Avenue. 11.42 feet is proposed, where 20 foot is required. One edit, Mr. King, on page 4 of 7, at the top of the table, my parking requirement calculation is for 4-bedroom townhouse. The applicant confirmed it is 2-bedroom for each unit. The calculation for requirement is 1.5 spaces times 4 units equals 6 required, and they're proposing 14. So they do meet that, and they met it before, but the numbers were wrong.
That 14 is with the ancillary parking, the
Yes.
overflow
Yes.
parking?
Yes, they have 6 ancillary on the parking lot and 8 on the, underneath the structures. Parking setbacks. This is the existing lot that's being reconfigured. There's setbacks required from Washington Street, 20 feet, where 17 foot 8 inches is provided. The rear yard requirement for parking is 20 foot, and that's up against that 1-story masonry building at 1400 Texas Avenue. There is a 0-foot setback. And a parking buffer of 5 foot is required around the entire parking area, and that has been not being provided on at least 2 sides. So those are the variances. I'll move on to the general review comments. Item 1 is our standard condition that they have to comply with the flood damage protection code for new construction. Item number 2 is they have to have the new utility service connections shown to the subject lot and have those approved by the city. That's the water and sewer services. So then the evidence of that approval has to be provided as a condition of approval. Item number 3, this is the requirement for buffering. So a parking lot which is accessory to a permitted use has capacity for 5 or more automobiles and abuts a residential district or a lot used for residential purposes shall be screened from the adjacent property by a buffer planting strip of not less than 5 feet in width. So I did recommend additional buffering be provided there,
Where, Craig?
surrounding the site. I mean, most of the vegetation that's proposed around that overflow parking is grass. So we recognize there's clear site triangles there, but there can be some low shrubs be provided there. And I believe that your environmental commission suggested that numerous types that are more environmental friendly than what's on the plans. Okay, item number 4, parking and paved areas. All pedestrian walks and parking areas shall be paved with an all-weather surface in accordance with city building regulations. Curbing shall be provided to separate parking areas, streets, and driveways. A parking lot which is accessory to a permitted use and has a capacity of less than 5 vehicles may be allowed to provide one of the following pavement surfaces. So if you're under 5 parking spaces, if your requirement is under 5, you're allowed to provide stone, pavers, etc. In this case, they are over the 5, so they're required to have it paved. And in this case, they're proposing clamshell? Stone parking in front of the 4 units along the Yacht Avenue side. So there's a waiver, it's a design waiver that's necessary from that if the board is willing to grant that. Otherwise, they're going to be required to pave that.
What is this here?
Can I ask a question about that?
You may.
What? That area, they're proposing stones, and you're suggesting concrete paving?
The requirement is for asphalt paving or concrete.
Which of those 2 surfaces would promote the percolation of water away from the street and down into the ground?
Obviously, stone would, but typically when we have higher volumes, that's why there's a threshold for 5 or more parking spaces. When we get into higher volumes, typically those stones get compacted. They almost become asphalt after utilization.
Well, if it were asphalted, where would the drain be for the water that doesn't get sucked into the ground?
I can't tell you because I did not approve a drainage plan for this site.
Oh,
Where's the stone? Where is the stone? Is that up in this,
Yeah, that white
The whole-
area that you're looking,
this area here?
the white.
Right up here?
They do
And this is-
have
this is
a
paved?
concrete apron at the driveway throat to Yacht Avenue, so that is paved. And that's, so that there won't be any spillage of stones out in the Yacht Avenue.
And this,
That's a
and
good
this is
thing.
paved here, too.
okay.
Yeah.
Can I just have some clarification? So if it was concrete or asphalt, then there would be a drainage system inside that parking area?
There's going to
Correct.
be a drainage system regardless of whether it's stone or asphalt or concrete. And the system size is not really going to change depending on whether it's the stormwater runoff calculations difference between stone parking surface and asphalt is not that big of a difference. For the sake of calculation, it's considered impervious. So you don't get much benefit from it.
But, okay, but there's going to be drains in this?
We don't
or-
know yet.
We don't know, oh, okay.
I don't know, they haven't given me a stormwater design that. Any other questions on that one? So the board will have to deal with a design waiver, approval or denial on that one. Okay, 5 just highlights the stormwater report and how I have not approved that and so they have to provide a statement of compliance, they have to deal with the stormwater quality issues, and they have to give me calculations that meet the RSIS and the city stormwater requirements.
And if they can't?
Then they're going to come back to you, or they're not going to have an approval, because that should be a condition of approval.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are audited by the state DEP with regards to our approvals of these types of projects, so.
That would be worked out to the satisfaction.
I mean, normally it's presented to us before we vote on an application. But
Our engineer has done that. I don't know why it's not in the
but
package.
we don't have any.
I understand. I'm surprised to hear that, but it has been performed.
But we don't know that.
I understand.
Bill, we are going to do exactly what he wants us to do. It's going to be the piping underneath with all the stone to collect the water and everything. And alls we were doing, it was from aesthetic standpoints, we were doing a 20-foot apron, and then we were doing a crushed stone inside there, sort of.
All that stuff.
I understand that, and then all the,
His drainage part is something that he normally sees prior to us voting on an application.
and believe me, that's 100%, we're going to do it. It'll be a subject to the approval. I'm not trying to waive around any of that at all, okay? It's going to be 100%. I'm not trying to contribute to any more of the stormwater or anything there. We'll definitely do exactly and have it drawn up properly.
The site has adequate room. I think that they can provide it. I don't know that. I haven't seen the design yet, but.
I don't- Our engineer has performed that and has the calculations. I don't know why it wasn't submitted. I'm at a loss to explain that, but we will make sure it's in there.
There's another reason why I only recommended granting preliminary. All right. So item 6, there's a stormwater maintenance plan that's required. They've identified that there's no condominium ownership, so the owner is going to be responsible for maintenance, and that's got to be provided in that maintenance plan. And that should be a condition of approval. All right. Section 525-59E10 requires that a majority of the parking area should be obscured from streets by buildings, landscape berms, natural ground elevations, or plantings, singularly in combination. So I recommended that additional landscaping is required to screen the parking from Washington Street where only lawn was proposed.
Why are we going, I'm sorry, I'm the one who's supposed to take notes, and I have to do a resolution at some point. So why are we just, it sounds like you're making, like we're having recommendations about landscaping and buffering, and then we're not addressing it. So I'm just not writing anything down.
Okay.
And if we approve it, I don't know if we're approving it with your recommendations, without any more buffering. So
Well,
I'm just giving the board fair notice.
I guess the
I get stuck
applicant
writing
should
stuff
be
down.
agreeing or not agreeing with whether they're going to meet that condition.
We're getting no reaction.
Agree.
Where are the buffers going? What else are you adding? We had a whole, 10 minutes ago, we had a question about buffering, and there were recommendations from, I think, our environmental commission, and then there was no reaction to that. So I don't know if I'm writing down that they're doing it consistent
got
with the
the-
report or not.
All right, well-
I have to write down a resolution. I get stuck
All
there.
right, well, let's go back to general review comments, number 1, applicant agrees to. Number 2, applicant agrees. Number 3, applicant agrees. Number 4, we're requesting the waiver for the crushed stone, but a drainage stormwater plan will be provided. Number 5,
You're asking, back up to 4, you're asking for a waiver from providing crushed stone in lieu of asphalt paving, as well as from concrete curbing around the parking areas.
correct.
There's 2 things there, okay? I just want the board to make sure they're clear on that.
I thought there was curving around that.
Not on the crushed stone, Bill. There's a metal curb instead of
You
concrete.
just got a retaining edge.
Yeah, I know, this is the crushed stone, but he also said parking.
Do you support that, Craig, or what do you?
I support that now, but I reserve the right when I review the stormwater design to make sure that everything is getting to the inlets. So that's my only concern.
Okay.
Okay.
Where's the concrete paving supposed to be around?
All the parking areas
Oh, here?
and here.
And can I just ask why there is no concrete
I was copying like a Nantucket look, like a crushed stone look, and we were doing a concrete edge rather than, we're trying to avoid it to look like a big parking lot. We're surrounded by blacktop and concrete between the Wawa, all the roads and all the roads. I'm sure you're pretty familiar with it, so we just wanted to do a steel edge to keep the stone away from the grass rather than a big concrete curb, which would really serve no purpose. I mean, we're going to do the same purpose with a metal edge on there.
Because the curb would serve typically if it's asphalt with the drainage, it would basically push it to the basin or whatever.
Exactly.
Collect.
And that's why, collection.
That's why
and that's
I'm
why you're
reserving
reserving.
the right to-
Okay.
And our drain feature, which I'm sorry it's not here, I mean, I can't believe it, but you'll see that it's all piping all underneath with crushed stone wrapped in wrapping material, then more stone on top and everything to handle all the drainage.
Okay, what are we doing with our recommendation from the Environmental Commission? We mentioned it, it was kind of like one of their more
Let's-
aggressive ones, I just want to know if we're,
Let's go through those at the end.
oh, okay.
I'll go by over each report.
Yes, sir. I thought you had mentioned it a minute.
I did. I piggybacked just
Okay.
for emphasis, but
But it's simply native plants, right? Or did I miss what they're on?
No, there's a couple that, Craig is talking
thought-
about, like, for example, along Washington Avenue, right? As near as, I don't know if there's a buffer between the back of these 6 cars and the main thoroughfare.
Okay.
Craig is talking about putting buffers in.
Okay.
The Environmental Commission says, well, you should put these kinds of plants.
Right.
But we haven't said if we agree with Craig, or if we agree with the plan that doesn't have it, or if we're going to put there. And then I'm the one who writes it down, and then the resolution is the one that's supposed to be what everybody follows. But I don't have anything to put in there on that. It's kind of just getting,
We're proposing that our landscape designer will work with the Environmental Commission to come up with a satisfactory plan.
But they're just going with the plant. I think there's 2 different things here. There's plants, and then where the plants are supposed to be.
Right.
For the buffers.
Right, the additional buffer,
Yeah.
I think Craig was talking about on the around the overflow parking area. We agreed to put additional, I think he said low height shrub.
no one agreed to that. He whispered to you, but it never got on a record.
Right, well.
Okay, well, we'll
that's
agree.
That's why I wanted to run through starting at 1 and go through all of these and make it clear what we were agreeing.
And let's, back to that 5-foot buffer, it's from the property line, correct?
Between we have it on the north and south side, where it's grass.
I understand, but I'm talking about along
If-
Washington Street.
if the board is going to approve the overflow parking area, there is no room to make that function and still provide a buffer either on the back or the front. Now, the side oriented towards Texas Avenue, where the little oval, the curve is, that little piece of property to the south of that parking area, they can provide
Some low shrub.
landscaping, and then on the other side, along Washington Street to the north end, they can provide some additional landscaping. But the buffer requirements for the front and back of that lot can't be met and have the parking lot still function. It's too narrow.
And we agreed to do both of the buffers. We'll do both of the buffers that he's recommending, the low sign stuff on both sides.
As far as a landscape goes, can we make a recommendation that species that aren't going to grow higher over the years to block views, and trees that are going to grow into the roadway and pop up sidewalks and the problems we have all over Cape May now?
There are site triangle easement requirements at every intersection, so they have to comply with those, and that's maintaining those below a certain height. And I think that's measured from 18 inches higher than the center line of the road, the abutting road, is how that reads. So,
You've got a tree that's right there in the middle of the,
well, there's plenty of existing ones all over Cape May that don't meet the site triangle issues, but we're Tree City USA, so we kind of put up with those.
But we can remove that tree right at the corner of Texas and Washington because that's a sight line.
No.
No,
According to the shade committee,
Now, those 2 trees,
They don't
those
want
2
them gone.
trees are up by Yacht. I'm talking about the proposed tree at the corner here.
yes.
Which if you're coming out of the driveway from the parking lot and you can't see Texas or Washington with that tree in your way. So let's just not put that tree there.
They're all
I
existing.
thought it was existing, too.
The same tree at Washington and Yacht, it's going to grow to be.
Are the 4?
Those 4 trees are there, and I think in the environmental report, it says that they have to stay.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure, because I called the lady back, and she gave me I referred Stan Spurlock to her, because she gave us a list of plants that would make it without, I think they're more sensitive without water and all. They gave me like a bunch of stuff that were more environmentally.
It says there's 2 trees on Washington.
Well, there's 4.
They must not have been the parking lot area.
Well, all it says is there's 2 trees in Washington, don't move them.
They probably didn't realize it when
Well,
applied.
The good thing is they're in the right-of-way, and the city and/or county can remove them if they're ever an issue.
Right.
Oh, they're on a county road.
They're within the right-of-way, so whoever controls the right-of-way controls those trees.
Oh, yeah. Now, here's the other, there's 2 other trees up here, Zach.
He's on number 5.
They were going through and agreeing or disagreeing with the comments.
I don't want to confuse, I want to back up to the stormwater management report. I did locate that in the file. I don't know why Mr. Hurlis didn't get a copy of it.
No, I reviewed the one that was submitted. It just,
On July 7th, the 15 stormwater
it just doesn't comply.
Okay.
We don't have, we don't have a, right. No, I don't have a satisfactory stormwater report and design. That's what the issue is.
We were under the impression that you didn't receive.
His mic's not on.
No, he,
Mr. Hurlis, was there a comment letter issued for that? On that report?
This is it. So the stormwater management report submitted 6/15/2022? Is that the one we're talking about, or?
Yeah, June 15, 2022.
Right, that was part of this review. That's not satisfactory.
There's no clarifying comments, just a general not satisfactory?
Technical comments are in item number 5.
Okay. Right, and we've testified that we will comply.
Right, okay. I just want to clarify that. It was provided, it's not satisfactory, that's all. Because I know Mr. Mazer had that concern as well. So, okay, so the number 6, the maintenance plan.
well, let's go back to number 5.
5.
Just so we're clear as to what we're voting on, is we're not privy to any of that, any calculations right now. We're leaving it open so that if it meets the standards that you think it should meet, Craig, then
They have to address the residential site improvement standards as well as the city stormwater regulations with regards to a project that's located in a flood hazard area. And they haven't done so yet.
Right, but we're going to provide.
They're agreeing to
what
do that.
Mr. Hurlis is requesting. To the board engineer.
To mine and the state says.
Well, if,
Yes.
as Mr. Hurlis indicated, if he is not satisfied with it, he doesn't sign the plan, we don't have approval.
Right.
you comfortable with being put in that position?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, I'm put in that position all the time, just
Right.
it's usually a little sooner in the process.
Okay, number 6.
You agree to provide a stormwater maintenance plan in accordance with the code?
Yes. And number 7, I think we agreed we'll add the additional shrub for buffering on either side in place of the lawn.
And we're going to say the north and south side of the overflow guest parking area, just so Rich has it in his,
Yeah, but there's none between the parking and the road, it's,
there's none between the parking and the road.
right? 'Cause I
So
know
it's
those
going to
things you
be
can't.
the north side and the south side of the overflow guest parking area.
Okay.
And that's, right.
Craig, I have a question, just information. It says the majority of parking areas should be obscured. Well, aren't the majority of parking areas on this site obscured because they're inside the buildings?
In my opinion, that guest parking area is not obscured.
I'm talking about the language that says the majority of the parking areas, there are 16 parking areas?
No, but you've got garages.
Parking area.
Well, they're obscured from the public.
2 parking areas.
I understand it to mean that where you have parking, you're supposed to try to obscure it.
The majority of those, yeah, they have obscured, they put them inside the building.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
you got,
We're talking
you
about,
got
the-
6
we're
that
talking
are
about
sitting
the
out there on an
overflow
asphalt.
parking.
No, it doesn't
No
say
parking
that.
around them.
You don't need to obscure indoor parking. It's not, it's by definition.
But
obscured.
they are agreeing to obscure it now, right?
We are,
Yes.
we're adding a.
I'm just
Yes,
so I'm
they're-
clear.
They're putting
There,
stuff
right,
here,
Right,
here,
and
that's not the majority of the parking.
right, okay.
It's okay, I'm just pointing out, that's how I understand it. It's the Texas Avenue side,
Right.
and the north side, there will be stuff,
Okay.
but not in the middle along Washington.
Okay,
And Craig's testimony is that there wasn't room to do it. There isn't room to do it there. That's what I'm
Right.
going to say, whatever it's worth.
okay.
Okay. So I think we took, now we're caught up with my report. So now it's back to me, and then we're going to go item by item, so we don't have to go back and do this again. All
We're
right,
at number 8.
we're at number 8.
Okay.
So there's a landscaping and vegetation plan that must be submitted and approved by the construction official. It should include the locations of all trees greater than 3 inches in diameter, which
That's number 9.
that's number 8 on mine.
I have 8, I have that.
It's 8.
I have issuance of a construction permit?
No, in accordance.
I'm on the top of page 6.
Yeah, so am I. Mine says
What?
prior to the issuance of any construction.
June
Thank you.
29th, 2022?
I went from 7.
Yeah, this right here.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, he's reading that.
That's number 8.
I got number 8. It's a top of 6 of 7.
He's reading 9.
Just start over.
All right, go
Craig.
ahead,
Number
go
10,
ahead, go ahead.
I got a little,
We're killing.
We'll get there. We can get
All right. In accordance with section 525-59I, subsection 3.
Craig, you
Sorry.
you skipped all that. You said
Yeah,
landscaping
I'm
plan.
summarizing
No, no,
it.
let me explain it.
Okay.
You started with a landscaping plan. The first line
Right.
of number 9 is
Landscaping
landscaping
plan.
plan.
Gotcha.
That's where-
I gotcha. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
All right, so 8 requires a landscaping and vegetation plan has to be submitted to and approved by the construction zoning official. We have numerous landscape comments in here, so we're going to need a revised landscaping plan as well as incorporate the comments of the Environmental Commission. All right, 9, landscaping plan must be revised to include types, quantity, size, and location of all plants. The heights are really important here because we have clear site issues. We don't want to create any new problems that are out there with limited site. We also have to have the site triangles identified on the landscaping plan. Okay?
Agree.
Agree? 9, plan notes should be revised to indicate parking calculations in accordance with the RSIS. Those are on the plans. The reason why I brought this comment up is I had a wrong
right,
four-bedroom count. So number 10 can go away. I'm sorry, the first sentence of 9. Number 10, the second sentence still applies. The 9 by 18 parking spaces underneath the structure have to be delineated in the driveways. So those have to be shown on the plan. Okay. So, number 11, the applicant has proposed new driveway curb cuts at both Washington Street and Yacht Avenue. Curb, sidewalk, and driveway apron construction details have to be provided on the plan, and the limits of proposed improvements should be noted on the plan. Comply? Will comply?
Yes.
Thank you. 12, proposed sidewalk along Yacht Avenue should be within the right-of-way, and you've done that on the plan. And the applicant has proposed right-of-way dedication to the city to accommodate the proposed sidewalk. Right-of-way dedication approved by the city should be provided as a condition of any approvals. Comply?
Yes.
Thank you. Traffic analysis. This is a summary of Mr. Shropshire's traffic analysis. I was hoping he was going to be here. I don't necessarily take issue with the specifics within the traffic analysis. We have, and I'm just going to rehash just so the record is clear, we have an existing undelineated parking driveway with parking spaces that have 2 existing curb cuts at Washington Street. Those are not controlled one-way in or one-way out. There are two-way accesses. What the applicant is proposing is a better situation. They have created one-way driveway in with angled parking, and they've moved that entrance further away from the intersection of Texas Avenue. That's a better situation. The worry here is that cars backing out of parking spaces here can block that driveway, which would create a stop situation in Washington Avenue. Same thing with pedestrians. If you have pedestrian conflict walking down the sidewalk at that time, when you're turning in, or if there's a backing out movement, you're going to be stuck out in Washington Street with those converging Texas Avenue and Washington Street parking maneuvers going on, or driving maneuvers going on. That is not an ideal condition. So it's been recommended, Mr. Becerra touched on, I made a recommendation that we make the driveway connection in off of Washington, proceed through the site and go back out Yacht Avenue. So that cars accessing the site are going to come out at a stop-controlled intersection. I also considered, and I recognize that parking is very important in the city, but this is a safety issue. Is it a better situation if we eliminated those parking spaces? The applicant has already met their parking obligation underneath the structure, so these are extra. These are overflow. These don't need to be provided. If you eliminated these, you would still have a conforming project with regards to parking. There would be no variances necessary. So the board should weigh, is that importance of providing that off-street parking, overflow parking, is it a better situation? And does it?
Actually, I'd suggest that it come in on Yacht Avenue and exit on.
I said it backwards, I'm sorry. Yes. You do not want cars entering this parking lot from Washington. That's where the conflicts occur. And the police department also identified it as a concern in their report. I think we all recognize, and when we enter this intersection, it is one of the most dangerous intersections in the city. I think we can all agree on that. So anything we can do to make this a better situation has merit.
Did Mr. Shropshire offer any opinion to suggest that the proposal that you made about going in on Yacht and out on Washington was safer, less safe, not able to be done? Did he offer any opinion to?
No, and that's why I was hoping he was going to be here. I don't know that he was engaged by the applicant at that point, because I had that conversation with the applicant very early in the process.
I have a quick question. Does the fact that these are residential parking spots make a difference as opposed to a commercial spot where you would have a lot of circulation coming in and out of these spots, where a residential spot, you might be parked for hours at a time?
Yeah, Mr. Shropshire's report gravitates towards that justification, is that the fact that residential spots are less turnover, you have about 10 trips a day, and so he goes through the trip analysis.
Okay.
He doesn't really go through the conflict analysis out in the street, or whether it's safer to bring cars out through a stop-controlled intersection on Yacht Avenue. So those were questions that I wanted to ask him. He's not here to address those.
Right.
In on Yacht.
In on Yacht, sorry, yes. In on Yacht, if you're going to preserve this. If you weren't going to, then the whole development would go through Yacht Avenue.
And you eliminate almost every variance.
Right, correct. So those were the questions I wanted to ask him.
But to do that, either an entrance or exit off of Yacht would eliminate all that landscaping on the, is that the west side of the
Some of it,
property,
I mean,
wouldn't it?
it's always,
Right.
Well, that's the question, and that's why,
Oh, wait, what was that again? I just want to be sure I got that.
If you create either an entrance or an exit off of Yacht into the,
you already have the entrance off of Yacht.
I know, but if you make it connect it to this,
We're talking about wrapping around the building.
you would eliminate almost all this landscaping right in right
Craig, can you
here.
do some math on that?
Yeah, that's what you must be talking about, eliminating all the side
Dave Shropshire
yards.
doesn't opine on that because the applicant doesn't want Dave Shropshire to
Ron,
opine
hold
on that.
Your expert said something no one could hear because you're both talking, so just, I just want to get his, say what you say, and then Ron, say what you say. We got to have a record.
I can only surmise that Craig's concept basically takes up all of the side yard buffer for a driveway along Washington.
Can I ask you a question? If you wanted it to come in and out off of Yacht Avenue, right, would there be an exit on Washington Street?
Yes.
Yes.
That's.
So the exit would be,
Closer to the intersection,
and
which is
then-
not safe.
so all's we're eliminated is one part of 10 trips?
It's not an in. So you're protected inside that parking area when you're evaluating whether it's safe to go out or not. The in condition is the problem because you're stuck out in the lane with merging cars in two lanes coming at you.
Well,
That's the safety concern.
it's in the middle of the block now versus the top of the block, and then you have 38 feet down from there, we all turn in and out for Yacht Avenue. So I think when people come around the curve, they're decreasing their speed, and if you see somebody with a blinker on right, you know they're going into that lot or onto Yacht Avenue.
Yeah, but they don't stop. I think that's what Craig's talking about. In the parking lot, they could be stopping there because they can't get in the parking lot. If you're coming in Yacht Avenue.
I think
you
it's
can
just
turn.
overflow parking. I mean, there's enough for it. You're only going to have 5. I mean, there's a maximum of 5 spots. Yeah, I think we're making them out now.
Or 6.
6 we have? Okay, I apologize for that.
You could create another one for that matter. You said you could create
Yeah.
another one for that matter, another spot.
It could be 7
Yeah.
if they.
And impervious increase as well.
Well,
In my hierarchy of justifying variances, safety is utmost, top of the line. We have a parking situation in the city, and our master plan identifies it all over. We identify, so that's secondary to me, but safety is first, and if we have to eliminate landscaping to promote safety and promote parking, I think that's a fair trade-off. That's my opinion. You guys get to vote on this stuff, but in my hierarchy of
But in that scenario, you're still making the turn off of Washington. You're just making it at the intersection with Yacht,
No, you're
right?
Which is an intersection.
you're making outgoing.
No, you're
No.
coming down Washington, and you're making a right onto Yacht, and then a quick another right into this driveway. So you're still stopping, making your turn.
Exactly.
So you're
At the
you're
Yacht
doing this-
Avenue
you're doing the
intersection,
same-
is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
But look at the distance between the curve and that intersection versus the curve and where these driveways
That
are.
curve can often be like the craziest
so-
part of that whole
We're talking about turning
roadway.
onto a road versus turning into a parking lot.
Correct.
And the road's a lot more dangerous. That Yacht Avenue is a lot more dangerous going in and out of than that a couple cars, 5 or 6 cars going in and out of there.
This is an existing parking lot, right?
Correct.
Now.
I'm sorry?
It's an existing parking lot now.
Exactly.
So we're not creating a new problem.
Mr. Chairman.
No, and to Mr. Platzer's point, this makes it a lot safer condition than it exists currently.
In fact,
He has-
there's fewer spots proposed than what's there today.
Mr. Chairman.
And it's a different situation, too, because if you look at the front of the building, they're all backing out of the parking spots into Yacht Avenue,
No.
which is a worse situation.
Texas Avenue.
I'm sorry, Texas Avenue.
He has 23 recommendations, right? I just want to make sure. I'm just saying, we keep going back to the parking one. Maybe we can get through all of them. It sounds like he was agreeing to all of them so far.
Yeah.
And then that'll be the discussion, I think, that
Right.
we'll have.
I agree.
Okay.
Well, let's roll through these. All right, 14. So this application is below the threshold for providing the EVSE and make-ready parking spaces, so there's no requirement for that. I just want to identify this is a new requirement that the state has imposed on us, and this one is, he's not required to have any of that.
What is the limit for that, do you know?
5 triggers. If they have 5 parking spaces, he would be required to do
Well,
it.
they have 6.
I'm sorry, it's not 5 parking spaces, it is 5 units. 5 units.
5 units.
Five
Okay,
units, sorry.
but well, why I'm asking, I know that has to do with units, but isn't there also a trigger for parking lots?
Commercial.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that, just wanted to make sure that we reviewed that, and that they're not required to do that. 15 is our standard condition that we recommend that sidewalk adjacent to the subject site is replaced to satisfaction to the engineer. Whenever they construct projects like this, their contractors drive all over the sidewalk and beat up the sidewalk, and they're required to replace it. Okay, 16, standard condition that the applicant shall submit plans to the superintendent of streets and roads for review and comply with the requirements for improvements within the city right-of-way. Evidence of approval shall be required. 17, do you agree to these? Just say yes, please.
Yes.
So we don't have to go back. Okay, 17, standard condition that they have to comply with the required sections that deal with performance guarantee and inspection escrow requirements.
Yes.
Yes.
18, very similar, they have to provide the inspection escrows, and the certificate of occupancies are tied to the satisfactory acceptance of those improvements.
Yes.
19, applicant has to comply with the recommendations and requirements of the Cape May Shade Tree Commission, Environmental Commission, Fire Department, Police Department, and Public Works. Now let's go through those. Fire Department, approved with no conditions. Police Department, approved, and they actually have comments under the following conditions. Some concerns with the parking lot off Washington Street. What's that say? Guest parking. The turnoff of Texas Avenue is, off of Texas is tight. Okay? Public Works, approved, no comments. Shade Tree Commission, approved with the following conditions. The 2 existing city trees on Washington Street may not be removed or damaged.
I see, I think they might be not looking at the full plan, because after there's 4 trees.
Okay. I agree. We went through the fact that there's 4. Environmental Commission, denied for the following reasons. Strongly recommend redesigning the landscape plan with an emphasis on native plants. Native plants, that says plants.
Plants.
Especially, I think it means plants, especially those that tolerate saltwater flooding and minimize heavy water use. Only 2 of the 13 species noted are native plants. Attached is the recommended plant list, and they gave us,
And we agree to have Mr. Spurlock work with the Environmental Commission.
so does the applicant agree with all of those things?
Yes.
Okay. Does the board want to modify those? Because those are recommendations to us. We're not bound by those.
Move on.
I mean, the only thing I want
I
to
am.
modify would be the shade
All
tree,
right.
saying 4 trees instead of the 2.
Okay,
I noted that. I said they probably meant 4.
Yeah.
okay,
Didn't we say the county controls that right away anyway?
yes.
But we control the trees.
But the county can cut them down.
Yeah. All right, we're moving on. Any required approval should be conditioned on all other state, county, and local approvals. Evidence of New Jersey DEP or approval or letter of no interest must be provided. You are very close to a tidal waterway. If you're within 150 feet of a tidal waterway, you're required to have a CAFR permit. Based on the mapping, your property may touch that line. So
We'll contact them again, but
a letter of no interest or evidence of DEP approval. 21 is just informational. They are not located within the historic district. 22 is our requirement that they have to comply with any and all applicable housing requirements at the time of approval or issuance of building permits as applicable. There's no on-site units of required. And 23 is just our recommendation that when they revise the plans, they have to provide an item-by-item response to that letter. So that is a summary of my report.
agree.
So, for the record,
Yep.
I think they agreed to every condition. Did I, just so I know, was that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, okay.
But there was a lot of conditions.
A lot
I
of
want that noted. There was a lot of conditions that weren't met yet, that there's a lot of questions about.
Right.
Right, we have,
The things that
we're
I
going to deal with a
have-
waiver
The things
later.
that I have for which there's 4 is the drainage Right, 4 is the crushed stone, and that can, they want to do crushed stone, they want to do crushed stone versus asphalt, and that's okay with Craig as long as it doesn't interfere with the drainage calculations. They want to, and they also want to divide that with something other than curbing.
Understood.
Remember these when we come to the votes, I'm going to try to figure it out again. The stormwater compliance, they have a report, but it didn't have calculations in it that corresponded to our code, so Craig considered it not a report. But Craig doesn't have an analysis of the drainage, because he doesn't have the data from them for that. But they do say that they will provide that at some point.
Okay.
And they will provide native plants consistent with environmental request, and there's going to be more buffering, but it can't be done behind the 6 parking spaces. It'll be done,
North and
they can only do it on Texas and the north part. That's what I have in terms of things that
Right,
aren't
right,
totally square and
right.
conditions.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, can I ask a couple questions? Okay. We didn't really get into density, but how does this density compare to what could exist and what you have in this?
I guess the question is, what can be built here?
Right.
Relative to what we're proposing. I mean, look, you can look at the, what's permitted in the zone. It's some pretty intense stuff here. I mean, shopping center, public parking lot, retail sales. I think, we've had some concept plans floating around for a while with commercial buildings and residential on top, which would be more than double what is proposed. The first idea with commercial space underneath and residential units on top. So that's a lot more. So you can just look through there and see all these things.
We have a standard for minimum lot size per dwelling unit.
Right.
Based on their lot size, the lot yield would be 7 at maximum density. So they could do 7 units instead of 4.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we toyed around with all types of different configurations, townhomes, individual single-family homes, things of this nature, and wound up with this configuration. So, yeah, to answer that question, this is on the lower end of use, intensity of use, traffic, people, congestion, everything that can happen here. I think I started out saying that this is sort of a blend into Yacht Avenue and the smaller character of the buildings on Yacht Avenue, and drawing that out, and Mark's paid particular attention to the design, the size, the massing of these structures to sort of blend in with that very, very unique neighborhood. This is a buffer between these intense commercial uses, Wawa. I don't think you can get more intense than a Wawa parking lot. We don't need any more of that in that location. And we have commercial building here facing Texas, and of course, some commercial uses across the street from that. So this is really designed to harmonize with the Yacht Avenue feel and character, which is extraordinarily unique to the city of Cape May, and you got to go way up the coast to find anything like that. We have a renowned artist who does Mark a personal favor and involves himself in this project because of where this property is located, and provides a landscape design. After being hounded by Mr. Platzer, and he finally conceded to do this. This is a win. You can count at it, but this is really nice. So, no.
You answered my question. Can I ask another
Yeah,
one?
sure.
All right. Okay. No, I appreciate it, but I'm sure there's a few around the table. I just want to point this out really to the board, too. As you all know, the Wawa parking lot going onto Yacht Avenue right there, the corner of this lot, which it looks like to me for the for the sidewalk is being dedicated to the city, right? Okay. I think the planning board might want to think about that area at some point, just as a separate thought to this. Top right corner of the site plan is right where it squeezes, right? They're coming out of the Wawa parking lot. As you all know, 2 cars don't fit, but it's a 2-way road. Maybe we want to look at that before this sidewalk gets done. I just want to, we don't have to talk about that now to overcomplicate things, but maybe we can look at that.
Would that be Wawa's responsibility, or?
I know we don't want to get deep into this, but all I'm saying is their portion that is being dedicated to the city. So maybe we open that up a little bit.
I wouldn't mind dedicating a little more if you could get that opened
Well,
up a little bit to make it safer.
that's what
I
I'm-
remember, you would go back far enough, there was a time when Public Works closed that off because it was so dangerous. They
Right.
took the extraordinary step of just closing it off.
So
Wawa-
and that's why I wanted to bring this up. I mean, I do think we could make that a
great
lot
point.
safer going into Wawa there on that corner. So, okay. Last thing I want to bring up is design, because this doesn't have to go before HPC. What you mentioned and what I agree with, design of this cottage look on Yacht Avenue. Would you consider the A-frame, which is what you would see on Yacht Avenue, the A-frame facing the street rather than the roof line? So
Gable ends and frontage.
the A-frame facing Yacht rather than one continuous roof line, giving each individual, giving each, this is, it's a design change that you would need to talk about, but
You know, Zach, I would consider it, but I think I copied, if you go down Yacht Avenue, and I don't know if everybody's familiar with Dagmar Chu's old house, the red roof house, and the current occupants are there. I'm copying that small house on stilts, that old beach shack that's been there, that the Conti brothers, the blueberry farmers owned it for years. That roof is, you're seeing a little bit more of it here from your street. You're not going to see it from a view, and I encourage you to drive by that house and everybody on the board just to look at it. But I think the design, I mean, I think if we needed something or had to add a dormer or a little eyelid up there at some point, and I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you're going to see it from the roof line. You're definitely not going to see it from anywhere but coming up Yacht Avenue. It's not going to be visible from the Wawa parking lot or anything as far as that goes. So
let me go on your dormer thing. If you don't want to do the A-frame facing, that's fine. But maybe an A-frame dormer over the staircase area, just to break up
just to
the
try to
roof
dress
line.
it up, yeah, I would definitely consider looking at it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's all my comments.
Thank you.
I'm just going to comment. You know, overall, I think that the houses sit well on the property.
Thank you.
I do have a concern about the cars coming in and out of Washington Street. I think it's a safety concern today, especially when I came into town from work. I couldn't even go past it because of all the cars coming down there. I couldn't imagine people trying to pull in and out. Visitors don't understand how you maneuver around there, so they're always looking to the left, and I always think they're probably going to rear end somebody because they're not paying attention well enough. So I do think it's a safety issue with that pulling in and out on Washington Street. I do have concerns about all the issues that haven't been addressed yet. I would like to have my opinion would be to table this until we can get a lot of these questions answered and then come back, because it's almost like, well, we're going to do a different planning, but I don't know what the planning is. So, you know, how am I approving something when I don't see it, or where the buffers are going to be? With the buffers, with the plants, what plants are being put in. There's also again, I'm not sold on this pulling in and out of Washington Street. I'm concerned about the drainage. I know it's flood area, so we shouldn't be concerned too much, but you know, versus crushed stone versus the concrete was the other one.
I think aesthetically, the crushed stone is a much better look. You know, I don't want it to look like a big parking lot. You know, it's going to be a soft approach, and it's going to be dug out with layers of stone that all the water filtrates through, and then there's going to be a filtration plan. It can't be built. Nothing can be built without him approving the drainage issue, and we're going to address it. And I think the traffic thing, I think you've heard testimony that you're talking about a few overflow parking spots, and it's making it a lot safer than what it currently is. And to do a driveway all the way around there again, it defeats the purpose of what we're trying to achieve in our neighborhood about creating a lot of green space and a lot of buffers and not making this property visible from that side street and not having people listen to traffic and noise and headlights and driveways coming up the side of their house each night.
I guess we'll just have to disagree. That's,
Okay.
I'm just giving my opinion that I feel it's unsafe with people pulling in and out of Washington
Okay,
Street.
thank you.
My comment, first of all, I think this is a big improvement for this corner here especially, and it's a lot better than a bunch of overflow U-Haul trucks that are typically in the parking area there. I think that the overflow parking and the way it's currently designed, I really don't see where it's going to be that much of a problem, because of the number of cars and the number of movements that you're going to see in there, especially it being residential as opposed to commercial. Certainly a lot better than what happens on Texas Avenue. So I agree with what you're saying, Craig. There could be a better way, but I think what it does is it kind of would destroy the look of that corner and at Yacht and Washington there. So I really don't see that as a major issue.
Thank you.
Safety perspective.
The board's free to comment, but you haven't heard from the public yet. Just reminding everyone that you're going to hear some public comments, so if you, it's up to you.
Why don't we do that now, then we'll say reserve our comments for after we hear from the public. All right, so we're going to open this up to the public. Anybody within 200 feet of the project, would please come up to the podium. Make sure the speaker, the microphone's on.
All right, just so everyone knows, the way it works is you're going to go up, I'm going to swear you in, you're going to say your name, you're going to spell it, and then you're going to testify, okay? So we'll practice, you have to give your address. So it's, I'm going to swear you in, you're going to give your name, your address, and spell your name, okay? And I have to write it all down. So, sir, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, what is your name?
My name is Joe, Rafter, R-A-F-T-E-R.
And what's your address, sir?
1526 Yacht Avenue. Okay, so I just want to say a couple of things. I heard the word density when the project being proposed with 4 units. To me, that's a win as a full-time resident that I am. And I will say this, that the density to me kind of gives us as neighbors with children and nephews, and our neighbors all have kids, and Mark and Kathy, sorry, they have grandkids. So I like it to have consideration that Mark also lives on the block, and I think the safety thing is certainly something that he cares about. The other big consideration here is when I know that this could be used for commercial use, that's the last thing as a neighbor I want. Again, I'll go back to the density. Whether you work it in to go in Washington or Yacht, I guess I'm pretty sure you'll figure out what is the best and highest use. But I will also point out that the other word I heard was aesthetic. If anyone has ever seen Mark and Kathy's 3 properties on Yacht Avenue, as a full-time resident, I see people walking down the street all the time, taking pictures. They take care of it. It's really, really something. It's impressive, and I'd encourage you to support the project. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
What is your name?
Last name's Crowley, C-R-O-W-L-E-Y.
First name?
Brendan, B-R-E-N-D-H-A-N.
Ooh, I didn't get that right.
Nobody ever does. B-R-E-N-D-H-A-N.
Okay, what's your address, sir?
1524 Yacht Avenue.
Okay, good.
I just wanted to simply say that, knowing Mark for several years, he's been a great neighbor, a very upstanding citizen. He was very polite to us, to come to us as neighbors to present his vision for the proposed lot. I think it's not only a much welcomed visual enhancement to that part of the town. But as the previous speaker had said, myself having 4 kids, 4 teenagers on bikes that constantly come in and out of Yacht Avenue and Wawa, way too often in Wawa. But I think that's the entire plan is a much better flow for traffic for the area, and from a safety perspective, it's a much better enhancement than it is right now. I think that's the main issue at hand. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, what's your name?
Michelle O'Donnell.
2 N's, 2 L's?
Yes.
And what was your address?
Actually, I own 2 properties on Yacht Avenue, 1531 Yacht Avenue and 1516 Yacht Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
So I would just like to say that I've lived not only on Yacht Avenue, but previously on Texas Avenue. So I've been in the neighborhood for over 20 years. And I think this is a huge improvement to our neighborhood, which, you know, a lot of us on Yacht Avenue kind of feel that we're almost like a stepchild. Nobody pays attention to the water that we deal with. Tractor trailers pulling down roads that they're not supposed to. So I think that it's residential, it's an improvement, and I commend them on the effort to do that. I would propose to the city that you take this opportunity to listen to the concerns about the parking coming from Wawa, and maybe take the opportunity to correct that stop sign that's there. He's giving it to the city. You have the opportunity, tractor trailers pull down Yacht Avenue, and somebody's going to get hurt. So I would hope that you could deal with that and listen. And then also the water, they're addressing the stormwater issue, which is only going to help us on Yacht Avenue, because somehow it's going to tie into what's going on Yacht Avenue. So, thank you.
Sir, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
What is your name?
Rick Hollowell, Hollowell. I reside at 1512 Yacht Avenue with my wife and 2 young children. I've known Mark for, since I moved on to Yacht Avenue from Washington Street, and I'm the first house on Yacht Avenue, right after the Wawa on that side. So I look at what that lot is right now, and understanding and seeing everything that Mark wants to do with that, making that residential and an extension of Yacht Avenue, is a godsend for us compared to having to deal with just the Wawa noise, the Wawa traffic, and just how that is just all commercial there. So the last thing that we want on that corner is more commercial. I agree with what Michelle said about how this is also an opportunity to fix a very bad problem there at the exit of Wawa on the Yacht Avenue with the land that's being provided to the city, because that is a hazard that you can't fathom. You could sit there for an hour and you could see probably 24 people almost get killed at that section right there. I believe that everything that I'm seeing in the plan that Mark wants to do, and knowing Mark and know what Mark did with the 3 homes on Yacht Avenue that have enhanced the beauty of Yacht Avenue, I trust his intentions, and I think it's a vast improvement for all of us that live in the section and for Cape May as a whole.
Thank you.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
What is your name?
Robin Gilbert.
I-N?
Yeah. Anything with it.
What's your address?
1517 Yacht.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Met Mark first through business, and then we became neighbors down on Yacht Avenue. One thing I can say about Mark, he's upfront with anything he's doing, and he comes to you and explains it in detail, sometimes too much. But I've witnessed what he's done with our Yacht Avenue boathouses down there. He kept the look, the iconic look. What he's proposing to do at the corner of Yacht, I think is amazing, because he's keeping it simple. He's keeping it in the look that it should be. It's going to be a great look coming out of Cape May, rather than having that parking lot there as the last thing you see leaving Cape May. I hope you consider it, because the rest of us think it's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
Anybody else care to speak? Okay, we'll close the public portion. So we've heard all the comments. We all have our opinions. Before we vote, anybody want to make a statement or?
Yeah, I just don't think that that little supplemental parking lot's is that big of an issue. It was an existing lot that's been delineated to make it a lot safer. They use it now. I don't think it's a problem that it's been portrayed to be. I would support this project.
Just a question and then a comment. Could you explain to me the rear setback issue? Because I'm looking at this map and there's this sort of...
There's two of them.
Yeah, there's one here.
Yeah, there was one here. So these points on the map are where the rear setback is violated, right? But there's lots of other space that it's not. It isn't a straight line across the property. So you're talking about 2 points on the plot where it doesn't conform.
Well, here's the setback line.
Yeah, there's the setback line. So and all of this conforms.
You're correct. There's only 2 points, and the reason being the other lot is a jagged lot. It's a jagged saw lot. So there's actually only 2 small areas that need the variance, and they're highlighted on there.
So the waiver you're asking for is not for the whole backyard, it's for those 2 spots on the map.
That's correct, yep.
That's a variance, not a waiver.
Cuts in.
A variance, I'm sorry, a variance, yeah. Okay. And the other question I had was, the commercial buildings, is there rear access for business purposes back there?
Just fire exits, just in the rear door in the event of a fire.
So there wouldn't be any traffic coming up through there to...
No, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, I had another comment too, and actually, Lou pointed this out to me. In your packet is this map, and I think that this was already been presented to us. It's from this document here, Exhibit A. And I just want to make a couple of observations about this. And if I looked at this map, and somebody came to me and said, I want to design my town to look like this, I'd beat him with a stick. Because it's probably the worst and most convoluted way in and out of a town that hosts 50,000 people a day that I've ever seen. And so in that context, plus the lot is an eyesore as it exists in the present state. Sorry, Mark. And so if I'm looking at this proposal, and there's going to be a series of trade-offs to fix this problem and make this place a better thing to have in our town. And the question I asked before was that you're widening Yacht Avenue. The turn at Yacht Avenue is actually the danger point in this traffic pattern. Because if you look up at the top of that picture, there's already yield markers on the ground. There's people who slowed down off of Texas, and they're getting ready to enter Washington in a constricted lane that's just for them. If I were looking at solutions to real problems, I'd do something about the Wawa driveway, which makes Texas Avenue the Indianapolis 500. But that's not the issue here tonight. That is an issue for the city, as is the notion that you got to stop the traffic from coming off the Wawa in the backyard, because that makes Yacht Avenue almost impassable if there's trucks back there. So I'm willing to say I'll trade off these 2 driveways just to make this place look better. And I think the traffic can be compensated in the existing setup with the yield signs on the road. The traffic gets already slowed down. You're looking at traffic suppression around that corner. I think it's worth the trade-off to put this building here and do it the right way, make it look like it belongs somewhere instead of a dirty lot with birds crap all over it. So my opinion is I think this proposal on balance is a trade-off, making the city better and accepting the fact that there's a problem there which we'll never solve. That's my comment.
If you want to speak, you don't have to. You don't have to. If you have a comment you want to make, Sure.
There's been a lot of talk about Yacht Avenue being the point of conflict, especially nearest the intersection of Washington Street. Based on scaling, it's approximately 19 feet wide. Would the applicant be willing to widen the curb there along the frontage of this property?
Not at this time.
I'm talking about widening the actual cartway, the travelway of Yacht Avenue. So he's dedicating right away. So there's room for it now, but he's not willing to make those improvements based on his answer.
I'm dedicating it if you guys want to improve it, but I couldn't afford to improve it.
I guess I'm up anyway. The fact that you be willing to work with us on that Wawa entrance there.
Right away, I would do that, absolutely.
I think that would be huge if we could fix that. We may have to work with Wawa on that right, right. But I think maybe they have an interest in seeing that happen as well. But having that as an opportunity is something the city would be obviously interested in doing. And the reason why I support this goes back to density, which was mentioned, the fact that you could do 7 units or even some commercial properties in this area. I think keeping it residents, you just heard from all the people who live close by, they all support this project. And even getting down to the use of stone, I personally like that, and so I do support this project.
Okay, I have to agree with what's been said. I like the idea of the stone because it does soften that area. And I really like the idea of having that corner landscaped and with berms and what have you. I think it's just going to set it off really nice. Big improvement from what's there. And again, I think the excess parking area, I think the problem there is de minimis because it is residential and it's basically going to be seasonal too, for that matter. So I just don't see that as a major issue. I really don't. And I support this.
Agree. Thank you.
I'll just comment again. You know, as much as I like the project, I think we could make that parking area safer, which is why I was against it.
I don't normally agree with Stacy. Too much stuff. Too much stuff.
Let the minutes reflect that.
I mean, this project is a major improvement. The density is certainly well under what it could be. It's a nice residential project. I am just hung up on that separate entrance coming in. I think if they bring the driveway around and have access coming on Washington Street, but not coming in off of Washington Street, that is my only hang-up, and I can't get off of that. I can't get myself off of that. So there's a lot of stuff that still has to be done. The engineering, the stormwater calculations, the working with the Environmental Commission on the landscaping and so forth. That's stuff we would normally have. We don't have that. This is a little bit of a upside-down application from that standpoint, but if Craig is comfortable working with getting the information later on, I'm fine with that. As I said, my only hang-up is that I think that drive should be carried around, and you do not have a cut. And it's a safety issue. We're a planning board, so we should be looking at safety issues in this town. And the neighborhood's in favor of it. They would probably still be in favor of it if you pull the driveway around. I don't think that is going to kill the whole thing, but that's me. And that's her. So,
Bill, I have one more thing. That I think the most important concession that Mark's made here is to give up the footage to make Yacht Avenue wider, because this driveway you turn into on Yacht Avenue is a lot safer than turning around that telephone pole to go on Yacht Avenue, and these people use that every day. I mean, you're talking about something that's going to be used occasionally. He's given up the right to make that whole area safe to do this project, and we're worried about some turn that's going to be occasionally used.
I don't think it's going to be occasional, because right now, you got a lot of cars parking in that lot, that empty lot, and this is going to give an opportunity for them to park in this.
But there's going to be less spaces.
No.
Stacy's only going to have 6 spaces in there of guests of the people who live in the apartments, or the,
Or whoever wants to, whoever they deem they can park there.
But there's only 6 of them. It's a whole lot now.
Is that open to the public, that lot? I missed that.
No.
Well, I mean, it's whoever they.
We got a lot of problems with other
Yeah,
businesses
yeah.
parking in there, but it's going to be eliminated. And we all know that. Everybody on this board knows that. So that's not my problem, okay? I own the property. That's somebody else's problem.
And with having the depressed curbs there, what we've found in town, that if there are depressed curbs and open spaces, people will park there anyway. So at least now we'll have like a controlled parking lot marked with a this one's in, this one's out type of flow. I mean, we found out on St. John Street when we took those houses down, there's depressed parking, and I see cars there all the time.
Any other comments from anybody? So we are voting on the application with its attendant variances and waivers, with which Rich has made notes on, and this is for preliminary only. So, anybody care to make a motion?
I'll help you make the motion, but I need to know what motion you want,
Well,
because
is it,
you need to
is it,
have, if it's, hold on. The first thing is you decide if you're what you're voting on, whether it's preliminary and final or just preliminary. So I need to know what you want to do.
Well, I think they made concessions that they would need before final approval, correct?
Well, no.
Okay.
You can do preliminary you can do preliminary and final, and that final can have conditions in it.
Understood,
Okay?
understood.
But I will tell you, on site plans like this, usually, the drainage is a thing that if you want final, it's got to be usually in there in the landscaping plan. When you're going to start moving landscaping around and doing drainage plans, a lot of times you kind of do preliminary and then do final, so your engineer gets another view of it and gets to hear from the board on it. Now, you have to decide, though, if you think that the things are minor enough that you're comfortable doing preliminary and final with these as conditions, but that means that you won't see it again. So you have to hear from Craig on that. That's not a lawyer thing. That's kind of like if the engineer is comfortable enough that, it doesn't need to come back before you. So I hear from Craig on that.
Could, for the benefit of everyone, could you go over those conditions one more time? I know they agreed to, you already said them, I know, but.
I begged everyone to listen.
I know.
I just also want to make it clear that the board or the applicant's requesting the final approval. And this is why I think, and the board's opinion on this counts as much as anyone else. The board can decide what can be conditional and not conditional. That's a board decision. The things that we would be looking at if we were to come back would be all of the conditions that we agreed upon. So what are we going to do? We're going to sit here and come back here and say, yes, all of these conditions have met Craig Hurlis's determination, because he's going to decide all these things, whether they're satisfactory. So we really come back here and we sit here and Craig says, yes, all the conditions have been met, you have your final approval, because that's all you're really going to do on final approval. We're approved.
That's not, yeah.
That's every final approval to some extent.
The board, there's a lot of moving parts going on, so does the board want to see it or not? I mean, that's the question that the board has to decide. Do they want to see it back one more time before they grant final approval to it?
Could you go over the moving parts one more time?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. You may or may not, okay, the asphalt is a great example. Crushed stone versus asphalt. They don't want to do asphalt. They want to do crushed stone. The ordinance requires asphalt. Craig can't tell you if it's gonna be crushed stone or asphalt, because he hasn't done the drainage calculations to see where the water's gonna go and how it's gonna be directed. So you may approve it tonight, and then it turns out that it's asphalt, and it never came back to you. So when someone says, hey, why is there a big asphalt parking lot? You're gonna say, I never really knew. So that's the kind of thing that can happen in between. That's up to you. So if you wanna defer to that, say, yeah, we know it might end up being asphalt if they can't do the drainage, so we're okay with that. But you don't know right now, as you sit here, if it's gonna be asphalt or stone. So that's an example of Craig saying, you gotta decide if you want that to come back. Normally, the stormwater calculations would be there. Craig could tell you definitely that they can do stone, because they don't have to direct the water with the curbs. So you don't have that in this instance. The landscaping plan, basically, you have a landscaping plan, but the Environmental Commission didn't like the species they were using. So now there's gonna be a landscaping plan that's gonna come back. It's gonna have different species, and they're gonna be in the front near New York, not what I say New York, that's not in Texas, near Texas, and then some up here on the north side somewhere. I don't know if there's gonna be more in the other buffers. We kind of didn't talk about that, but there's gonna be a landscaping plan that's gonna have a different plan.
Didn't they agree, just so I'm clear, to meet with the Environmental Commission with their landscaper?
Yes.
Okay.
They did.
Okay, I just,
And then, but then that would come back to you and you can look at it. So they
right,
did agree
right,
to
right,
go address
okay.
that. So
I
that's-
think with the landscaping, there's two issues there. One was the plant, and the other one was locations.
Right, right.
But that's okay. I mean, look, not every final site plan you give has the landscape worked all the time. And we have zoning hearings where we say, okay, you'll agree to work with Craig on the landscaping to his satisfaction. They say yes, and we do it a condition. So
Right.
that happens, okay? So landscaping isn't traditionally, in my opinion, a reason not to give final. Drainage is a different thing.
I have a
But
question.
landscaping isn't.
I got a quick question.
You know, that's up to you.
Just a quick question on drainage. On page SP2, there's all these calculations. That's not it?
Doesn't meet
What is all that?
doesn't meet the standards.
Okay.
That wasn't that for the, you told us that wasn't for the water quality, in which we then provided. These do meet the state standards.
It's okay. Okay. We're going to submit the correct report, and we're going to submit it properly to Mr. Hurlis' satisfaction.
Well, I mean, what you could do, Mr. Mayor, is you could condition it on it's final, but if you can't meet the drainage calculations to not have the paving, then you need to come back. So,
We'll agree to that. That's a, yeah.
Fine, fine,
okay?
good.
Certainly recommend to the applicant to get the jurisdictional letter from the DEP, because their review of stormwater is gonna be a lot harsher than mine, and you may have to make plan changes.
Okay, so I guess what you could do is preliminary and final, but with the condition that if they can't do the crushed stone in the manner they presented it to you as a result of the drainage issues, they have to come back, is that,
Crushed stone and/or the curb.
And the curb.
Curb is more related to stormwater control than
Okay.
asphalt.
all right, fine. So as long as they don't have to do the curb and or asphalt, they don't have to come back. If something goes on with the drainage situation that they now have to alter and have to do curbing and asphalt, then they should come back and you guys can look at the full presentation again. Does that make sense? I'm trying to get a consensus so we can have.
Yeah,
one motion.
it makes sense to me.
All right, so,
I just have one question or concern. The mayor made a recommendation about architecture. Did they agree to that?
Yes, yes.
well, no.
No, not specifically. He said he would look at it. Said we'd look at it.
That's how I don't know how to deal with conditional approval. That's gotta be very specific.
I only made a recommendation. They didn't seem to love it, which is fine. I didn't hear anyone else compliment my recommendation.
Dormer part, I think Mark said he would look at, not the A-frame, but the
Right, the dormer.
If it looks funny, I'll consider adding them.
Okay, fine. That's good with me. That's good with me.
Those are the hard ones for me when I
Right, right.
My impression, he's gonna have to look at it a lot more than us. Maybe.
And all the neighbors loved it, so I,
All right, so the motion, as I understand it,
Real quick,
yes.
with What about the CAFA permit? Do we have to wait for that to be yes or no?
That's a condition.
That's a condition of, that's additional approvals. We always have that as a condition at the end.
I won't sign the plans until I get that.
Okay, so the motion that I think is within the contemplation of the board is a motion for preliminary and final subdivision approval with the plan.
Site plan.
What'd I say? Subdivision? Oh, geez, almost got that. That'd have been gold. Preliminary and final site plan approval with the correction that it's 2 bedrooms per unit, as in the report. Another condition is that if it is separate ownership, then they will do the homeowner association control of the common improvements.
That's important.
Another condition is that they are getting final approval, but if the drainage calculations, for whatever reason, the state issues or Craig's issues, result in it not being crushed stone, but rather asphalt, or that they can't have the metal, but instead have to have a raised curb, that then they have to come back to the board for a more complete review of that issue.
Or a different configuration.
Whatever, they have to come back, and then we deal with it. Whatever, you know, they have to come back, and then you submit plans and you guys review them. And the landscaping is going to be done to the satisfaction of the Environmental Commission, and with regard to species, and to Craig's satisfaction with regard to the location along Texas and the north side of the ancillary parking. They're also going to work with whatever the mayor was talking about with regard to the corner up near Wawa. And I think that covers the conditions, in addition to those 1 through 23 that we discussed as we went along. But I tried to touch the high points, also the waivers that we discussed. So that's the motion that I think you all want to make. But you make it in the affirmative to grant. That doesn't mean you're going to say yes. It means that we always make the motion in the affirmative. How you vote is up to you. And in this instance, you've already articulated some reasons. So how you're going to vote, you can articulate more reasons if you want, but you've sort of given them, and I'll, take those in yes or no's as they go.
Okay, somebody care to make that motion?
I make a motion, we approve the project based on the attorney's recommendations.
You gotta say the whole thing.
I'll second.
And that includes all the variances they requested as well? Yes? Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Lundholm, seconded by Mr. Gorgone. Mr. Belasco?
Yes.
Mr. Gorgone?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan? Mr. Crowley?
Yes.
Mr. Lundholm?
Yes.
Mr. Malloy?
Yes.
Mr. Becerra?
No. Passes. Congratulations. 6-2. Okay, guys.
Can I just make one comment before we go? That,
Is it about this application?
no, it's not about the application, it's about that property. And let's have, can we have all the political signs off that lot by the election?
Depends if he gets his approval or not.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Yep. Good night.
All in favor?
Night.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't read
I have one. They're the same. Oh, no, they're different. Oh, wait a minute.
Bill, sorry I was running late.
I've been late plenty of times.